This is Gadgetman 404 and I'm doing a quick review on the Syma X7, or another name for it is the spaceship. Right, this is quite a good little quadcopter. I got it from Bargain Madness for £20. It should be 40, but it's in the sale for £19.95. These zip ties I just modified, make the legs a bit longer because I carry a camera underneath, so basically you don't have to do that, but it gives it a bit of spring actually when it lands, bit of a shock absorber. Where to begin? It is a 2.4 gigahertz transmitter. This is very similar to like the Xbox controller, and also I've got the RC logger i1 Extreme, and the controller is exactly the same as this. Now, one thing that is different, which is better with this one, when you throttle up is left and right, and turn it to pirouette, and that is forward, backwards, sort of rocks left, rocks right. See how that springs back, but the throttle doesn't, so it's quite good. You can push it to as high as you want and just leave it there and it'll just hover, whereas with my old one, if you let go of the stick it would start to move back, so then it starts to come down. So you can go as high as you want and just leave it like that, and then just control with the other one. So I don't know if that's how it's supposed to do it, but it does do it and it works really well. It takes 4 AA batteries in the back, and that is really weighty. My controller for my quadcopter that cost 5 times more than this did, and basically my controller, same amount of batteries, but it's a lot lighter than this. This feels really substantial, feels really weighty, and it's a nice feel in the hand. You've got your trim buttons here, so if it starts going backwards you go forward, backwards, that's left and right. If it starts drifting you can sort it out that way. You get a spare set of props, so you get 2 clockwise and 2 anti-clockwise, and you get a screwdriver, because with these props there's a screw in the middle, you can just see that there, and the only way to get these on and off is you have to unscrew. Now, as most quadcopters, it's got like automatic cut-off, so if it hits an object, motor stops dead. Obviously if you're up in the air and you glance into a tree, that's going to cut off, you're going to fall. But I've been flying today, lost my orientation. Well, it was more the wind took me where I didn't want to go, and it was flying behind me. And any modeler will tell you, when your aircraft is behind you, it is a lot harder to sort of get your bearings quickly and start saying, okay, go left, go right, go forward, etc. So anyway, that being said, it is a very good quadcopter for the money for very calm days. Now today I took it out and it's quite gusty at times, and that's what happened. It got higher and higher, and then the wind was swirling around and it took it away basically behind me. And what I tend to do is, in those situations, I just come down. It crashed through some trees and landed just outside someone's garden, but no damage. The quadcopter, as you can see, there's no scratches at all, no cracks. That's part of the actual artwork, if you like. Now there's 2 LEDs built in here, red, and I believe you have a green one on the side, a green one that side, and a red LED at the front. Now unless it's low, you don't really see the LEDs at the back because they're halfway down the shell, but the one at the front, it's pointing down. So actually it's very good for orientation, and it's very bright. The only problem with these batteries is it doesn't give you long, so when it starts to, I believe it starts to blink, and literally you have like 20 seconds to land it. If not, it'll just fall out of the sky. And if you're very, very high, you can either try and run and catch it, or you can take a chance and see what kind of damage is going to be done when it lands. It doesn't come with a camera, but I have adapted mine, and I made a little brace with a loom band S-clip. It goes around the body, camera clips underneath, and it flew. But it is underpowered when carrying a camera that is over 20 grams. Now, there are cameras out there that are 10 and below, but I just wanted to test my camera that I've bought for my other quadcopter that is in a repair shop at the moment. And unfortunately, I've not had a decent flight, so I went against my better judgment and thought I will just try it and see what happens. And basically, in a windy environment, this just doesn't have the power to fight the wind, so it just went away from me, and there's nothing I could do. So luckily, I always start in the middle of a field, so then I've got a good chance that I can bring it down still in the field instead of in people's gardens, etc. The LEDs on the side and at the back are very dim. You don't really see them, to be fair, but the one at the front, because it's pointing down and it's like underneath, it actually is really bright. And quite a few chances today when I was flying in the sky, I'd lose my orientation briefly, and then I would then look for the red light, and then I knew that it was facing me, and then I could come towards myself or turn it left or turn it right or whatever, and it flew absolutely fine. As I say, 4 of those. You get 1 of these. Now these batteries, I believe, are 350 milliamp hours. That roughly gives you, depending on the weather conditions, if it's a very, very, very calm day, you'll get 8 minutes or more. But as today was quite windy and it was fighting the wind quite a lot, then I got 7.5 minutes. And for one battery that small, it's fantastic. Now there is a back or a bottom for this one. So basically, you put your battery in, you click that in there, and then you would tighten the screw, and the lead for the battery connector comes out there, because you plug the battery connector into the bottom of the device. Now I take this off because I have several batteries and I don't want to keep carrying a tiny screwdriver with me to get that tiny Phillips off, to take the top bark off, to get the battery out, to put a new one in, to fasten it in, so I don't bother. But because I am carrying a camera, I have that going over underneath, and that is enough to hold the battery in place. The batteries wedge in the little gap, so they fit in quite tight anyway, so you don't really have an issue with that. What else? The modes. There's 2 modes on this quadcopter. You have very sort of like slow and docile beginner mode, so you just press that in once, it'll click, it'll beep once. You press it again, it'll beep again, and that just gives you, on the docile side, it banks very gentle, very gentle. On the sport mode, if you like, it tips a lot more, it's a bit more aggressive, which, because I'm carrying a camera, I want it the slower one, because I want it as smooth video as possible. So that's why I choose mode 1, but basically there are 2 modes. There's also an acro mode. So you have to be quite high when you do this, because it sort of rolls over, it can roll, does a somersault that way, to the right, it'll do a front roll, and it'll do a back roll, and that all depends on your height. And then when you're flying, So you want to go forward roll, so you go forward and press the button, it'll do a forward roll, backwards, press the button, back roll, left, press the button, left roll, right, press the button, do a right roll. And it does recover very well. The longer you're flying, the less power you have in the battery, so obviously it takes a little bit longer. If you've been flying it for 5 minutes, your recovery out of the loops and spins and turns will be a bit slower. So if you're going to do that type of thing, do it when you first start to fly, when you've got more power in the battery. They're 3.7 volts, 350 milliamp. Now I have got some 500 milliamp batteries and also a 700 milliamp, and the fitting is exactly the same as this fitting here, and the volt output is still 3.7. so basically I use a 700 milliamp and nearly get 15 minutes. Now for a quadcopter of this size, for this money, to fly for 15 minutes on one battery is absolutely amazing, because the DJI Phantoms and so on don't fly for 15 minutes, and the batteries cost hundreds of pounds, and the quadcopter costs like nearly £1,000. This costs £20, the batteries cost £5 off eBay, and it flies for 7 minutes on a standard 380. 500 milliamp, you get in 9 to 10 minutes approximately, depending on weather conditions. And on the 700 milliamp, I got at least 14, nearly 15 minutes, and it was quite windy today. Well, it was very, very windy. So the only damage that's been done to my propellers is just scuff marks where it hit the tree and cut off. These adaptions I've seen on YouTube, it's just zip ties, double it back, you lock it on, double it back on itself, you cut the bit where there's no thread, and then I just tape it round the motor mount. On these, the wires from the motors, they actually run through the centre of this column onto the board itself. And as I say, it is a very, very good little quadcopter for £20 for everything you see here. That, and that. Like I say, I've been flying now for a few months, and it handles itself okay, but you need to be flying in calmer conditions. Today was just too strong. It can be flown indoors, but I still feel the docile mode is probably too docile inside, and it's slower to react, and then the aggressive mode is probably too aggressive for indoors, and you could quite easily crash into something before you know it. But as I say, it is a good beginner quadcopter. You can practice your stunts with these ones and then work your way up to gradually the £150 or the £200 ones. But I found it really, really good today, and it handled itself very well, considering the weather conditions were very, very windy, and it was slightly spotting with rain. Normally I would never go, but I'd walked all the way to the park, and I said to myself, I am not going home, I'm going to just have a little play and just see if it works, and it did. So as I say, that's my little adaptation. You see, it just gives you a nice bit of clearance there, and I fit my camera underneath, and as I say, when it lands, it's got a bit of bounce, so you know, you see, it bounces back. And they cost like 10p each for a zip tie, and you know, I do honestly think it is well worth the money. Go to your bargain madness. There's one in Ilkeston. I live in West Hallam. Basically, they had quite a few in. They've got a white and green design. I went for the red because I thought when the snow was here, I thought if it comes down I'm going to see it better. And actually when you're flying in the sky, because it's red, the contrast between the clouds, because the clouds can be white. Sometimes you can lose yourself just for a split second because it's all white and you sort of lose the shape, whereas red, it does stand out. And basically I think it's a very, very good little quadcopter for the money. So this has been Gadgetman 404. This is a little review on the Syma X7, or the spaceship. Everything you see here: controller, quadcopter, battery, back, and you get a charger, spare set of propellers and a screwdriver, and it will set you back £19.99. So it is well worth it. This has been Gadgetman 404, out.